return, we're going to talk hockey and talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we're not going to divert from that because they've been quite exciting in terms of the Ducks and Hawks. Another overtime scenario, however, it didn't go Chicago's way. They ended up losing 5-4 in OT, but if you look at it all together and what the Hawks did, coming back twice, essentially, in this game, coming back from a 3-goal deficit nearly and then a 2-goal deficit late, it's Anaheim. They got the firepower. But do you still feel that Chicago still is in this series going to Game 6 and after what happened in Game 5?
You can't count either team out. You got Jonathan Toews on one side that took the bull by the horns last night, and you got Getzlaf on the other team, and he runs the show whenever he's on the ice. So you got probably Canada's two top leaders playing on American teams that are. You can't count either team out. It could go either way. Three overtime games in that series so far, and it's a heck of a series.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, you can't count Chicago out, and their teams are just both built so strong. I feel both of their weaknesses is the goaltending. Corey Crawford's kind of been shaky throughout the playoffs, but like Anaheim's goalies, Frederik Andersen, has been more consistent, I'd say, through what he's done in the regular season, but still, they just got so little experience with Anaheim's netminders that if Chicago, I feel last night, if they would have had the jump off the start in overtime, they would have won that game just because Andersen, like that last goal he let in was from behind the goal line, like you said, which was horrible.
And you also look at the play, it was really a line change that didn't work out for Chicago. That should have been dumped along the boards. Instead, what happens? It ends up being a transition going the other way, leading to the game winner by Bolesky. Moving on to the New York Rangers. They're a team that have been known to be resilient. Since 2002, they're 12-3 in elimination games. That's a pretty darn good record, down 3-2 here in this series. Can they win Game 6 tonight?
It'll be tough. Like, you can't count the Rangers out. Like you said, they've been good in the playoffs, and they have so many leaders on that team and guys that have been there before in these big games. They know how to win. But the thing with Tampa Bay is Ben Bishop has been playing good. Both a couple games have gone 6-2, 5-1, but still Ben Bishop has played really solid for the Tampa Bay. And you know what? I think Steven Stamkos is finally awakening. He's been so, where is he in this game? Where is he the next game? He's just been so shaky. And like we were talking before we came in here, Tyler Johnson, he had a hat trick in one game, but I still don't think he's what he's been doing in the first 2 rounds. Like, I think if him and Stamkos wake up, I think Tampa can win it tonight, especially at home.
I think King Hendrick's going to be, he always comes to the challenge, so he's going to be tough tonight. But I think the Rangers have been worrying about one or the other, Stamkos or Johnson, and they're going to have to worry about both to shut them down. And I really don't think the Rangers can shut them both down. They just don't have it to shut both them down and outscore them. And Bishop's been as good as Hendrick, so I think Tampa's going to win tonight.
That's going to be interesting. The great equalizer when you talk about goaltending, and that's usually the biggest emphasis going to the playoffs. Well, how about this? Talk about the emphasis on Russian hockey. You look at the most recent senator, Slava Fetisov. If you're not too familiar with the name, well, he was a benefactor, played with the Soviet Union, benefited coming to the National Hockey League in his 30s, ended up playing very well, 2 Stanley Cups with the Detroit Red Wings, and had a pretty decent NHL career. Now, as a senator, he's saying, you know what? We need to keep our Russian players home, let these players stay till they're 28 years old, then they're allowed to leave. Does this seem a little draconian to you?
I think that, hey Potter, you calling kettle black? Really? I think you can't dictate to them. I think the NHL is still the best league in the world. If they're good enough to play there, let them play. They're kids, sure, but they can always go home. Look at Sandis Oslin. He's still playing in the KHL, and he's 44, 45. Whether you're playing in your 20s or playing in your 40s, if you're in a good enough shape, you're going to be able to do it either way.
Yeah, exactly. If the Russians want to come play, like you said, the best league in the world in NHL, let them go, right? Why would you hold them back when you can show what type of talent you have in those Russian players in where everybody's watching them, right? You go to the KHL and it's not, I wouldn't say it's as good as hockey as the NHL be, and you know what, like look at Ilya Kovalchuk. He went over there. Now that the ruble's down, he wants to come back. Like, if you went over there to go play at home, take the money out of it, right? Like, that's the only reason why
And
you
there's
want to
another
come
thing.
back to the NHL.
You talk about the ruble because ruble tanking. Now players are like, okay, we're not getting paid as good as we were. Now they're going to start seeing an influx of players, Kovalchuk being one of those guys that wants to come back to the National Hockey League, maybe earn some more of that green. Do you see that also being a factor? And maybe they're saying they want to hold the grip on these kids because they know they want to bolt for better money.
Yeah. For sure, it is. It's. I think they have to let them do what's best for them, and if playing at home is right, then they play at home. But for sure, they want to go where the money is. Kovalchuk is a prime example for sure.
Yeah. And like, why would you want to hold back an Alex Ovechkin and an Evgeny Malkin from the NHL when? Because if they go to the KHL, they will have probably nowhere near the amount of competition. Like, you have Ovechkin facing off against Crosby, 8 times a year almost? And they also playing other big, Eric Stahls, he's a big player. They play Tampa Bay. They play big teams with big names, and they get challenged. In the KHL, you're not going to have that. So why, in a sense, if you keep them there, sure, you're keeping your home talent at home, but you're not letting them show the full value of what these Russian players can do.
From hockey, we'll move into football real quick. The Toronto Argonauts moving to their new home in a couple years' time, BMO Field, also the home of the Toronto FC soccer team. But there's a little bit of controversy that goes behind this. You had Ricky Foley, who was upset, the newest, rekindled his, Argo status, was a Argo, traded, now back. He was frustrated. He was frustrated at the fact that it was Mike Babcock that took over when they were talking about the Argos getting their new facility. It was the TFC, the Toronto FC, the soccer team was upset because they're going to be using the same facility. And he just decided to go on Twitter and share his opinion and went off with a couple comments, basically referring to that every team in Toronto loses, but yet the Argos are the only team that brings in a championship. In fairness, he is right. If you look at the Argos, they've won a few Grey Cups. And you look at teams that have players that say, we the North, but then bolt south in the winter, referring to the Toronto Raptors. What do you make of Ricky Foley's tweets? And does he actually have a point that, screw the other Toronto teams because they're not truly Canadian? Or that, it's not, they're not championship teams, basically.
I think he has a point being that they don't get the recognition they need. They're all professional teams. They should all be recognized. But like the Babcock signing, he didn't like that because they're taken away from their new home. Well, it's bigger news to probably Toronto. They probably don't get nearly the fan base the Maple Leafs have, that the NHL has. It's maybe a little bit of jealousy.
Well, do you think does his tweets actually
I think
make sense? Like
they do make sense for sure. But I think it's gone a little overboard, I think.
Yeah, the tweets do make sense, but like you said, I think it is a sense of jealousy, right? Like, sure, CFL, in Toronto, it's more of like a lower caliber sport type thing, the way they look at their hockey, their basketball, maybe even the Blue Jays. But like, if you come out west, like Saskatchewan, that's all it is football, right? So the market he's in, you're not the top thing anymore, right? So you have to be able to know that, hey, Toronto Raptors, Toronto Maple Leafs are bigger than what we are, right? More people in that area probably are going to go watch football across the states instead of watching it in Canada, right? Because more people like the NFL. So I feel like he's just got to realize that the market he's in, you're not going to compete with those other teams.
Okay, well, how about this very quickly? Let's end it off this way. Is the move to BMO Field the best thing for the Argonauts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like better than in the Rogers Center. I feel like they don't get enough fan support to have that big of a building, and I feel like BMO Field holds less people, so I feel like they should be in that set of a venue.
It'll be like what Montreal did, and the
Yeah.
Alouettes saved their franchise because of it.
Exactly.
All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. You guys get ready for Over Under, and I hope you guys will be too. We'll be back in just a few moments.